The entire village went silent when Adisa told the man claiming to be his father, "You are not my father."
The boy was 11 years old the first time he watched his grandmother scrape the bottom of a pot to feed him while pretending she had already eaten. He believed her then. By the time he was 13, he had learned to count. 1 pot. 2 people. The portion she gave him was never half. It was always more. And yet she always said the same thing, "I ate while you were at the stream. I'm not hungry." He said nothing. He ate. And that shame never left him, even years later when he had a dining table long enough to seat 12 people and could not finish what was on his plate. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Adisa was born in a village where the roads turned to mud every rainy season and stayed that way for weeks. His mother, Kemi, was 22 when she had him. His father, Lonra, was 26, charming, and absolutely certain that the city held something better for him than a wife, a newborn, and a village that smelled of wet earth. Lonra left when Adisa was 3 months old. Not dramatically. No shouting, no fight big enough to remember. He simply said he was going to Lagos to look for work and that he would send money once he settled. He kissed Kemi on the forehead. He touched the baby's cheek. He picked up his one bag and he walked to the road and boarded a bus. That was the last Kemi saw of him. She waited. She wrote letters that were never answered. She sent word through travelers. Nothing came back. Not money, not a message, not even a rumor of where he had gone or whether he was alive. 2 years later, Kemi fell sick. It started as something small, a cough that would not leave, a tiredness that sleep could not fix. Within months she had thinned down to almost nothing. Her mother, Mama Agba, moved into the house to take care of her. She brought soup every morning. She prayed every night. She held her daughter's hand through the worst of it. Kemi died on a Tuesday morning, early, before the birds were fully awake. Adisa was 3 years old. He would not remember her face without the help of a photograph. He would spend the rest of his life trying. Mama Agba was 61 years old when she buried her daughter. The same week, she carried Adisa on her back and walked home. She had no plan. She had no savings. She had a small farm, a leaking roof, and a grandson who was too young to understand any of it. She raised him anyway. The village knew. Villages always know. People watched Mama Agba wake before sunrise to tend her farm. They watched her sell vegetables at the roadside market on Saturdays, sitting under a torn umbrella from 7 in the morning until the last buyer left. They watched her patch Adisa's uniform instead of buying a new one. They watched her go without, quietly, consistently, without complaint. Some helped. A neighbor brought yam occasionally. The church gave rice twice a year. A woman down the road sometimes sent her own children over with leftovers too. But no one came from Lonra. Not once. People asked about him the first few years. Has his father sent anything? Mama Agba would shake her head and say, God is providing. After a while, people stopped asking. After a while, Lonra was simply the man who had disappeared, and Adisa was simply the boy the old woman was raising alone. Adisa grew up knowing exactly what was happening. Children who grew up in lack develop an eye for it early. He saw when Mama Agba's sandals cracked and she used black thread to hold them together. He saw when she wore the same wrapper to church every single Sunday for 3 years because she had no other good one. He saw when she swallowed a painkiller and went straight back to the farm because she could not afford to rest. He studied hard because he understood that her sacrifice had a purpose. He passed his exams and got a scholarship to a secondary school in the city. When he left, Mama Agba stood at the road and waved until the bus disappeared. Then she walked home alone and sat in the compound for a long time before going inside. He sent letters. He visited when he could. He grew into a serious, quiet young man who did not waste anything. He worked through university. First a part-time job at a printing press. Then an office assistant role. Then a small business trading electronics on the side. By his late 20s, he had built something real. Not rich yet, but stable. Climbing. And through all of it, he sent money home. Small amounts at first. Then bigger. He built Mama Agba a proper room. He fixed the roof. He bought her a gas cooker so she no longer had to crouch over firewood. He paid for her hospital checks every year. She never asked for any of it. He never waited to be asked. Lonra found success in Lagos the way some people do, not through hard work, but through proximity to the right people at the right time. He had attached himself to a businessman early on, made himself useful, and slowly worked his way into a comfortable position. He had money. He had a car. He had a second wife and 2 children who went to private school. He thought about Kemi sometimes. He told himself she had probably moved on. He told himself the child was probably fine. He told himself Lagos had swallowed him before he could do anything about it and that it wasn't really his fault. He believed this. It is remarkable how easily a man can believe what he needs to believe. What happened next is the part the village talked about for years. 3 weeks later, Adisa's engagement celebration was held in the village. It was a large gathering. His fiancée's family came. Friends came from the city. The compound was decorated, food was plenty, music played from afternoon to night. Adisa sat beside his grandmother for most of it. He had bought her a new wrapper and had her hair braided properly. She looked small and old and completely happy. At one point during the evening, he stood up to speak. People expected a toast, or thanks, or something brief. He spoke for 20 minutes. He told the whole story. From the beginning. His mother's death. His grandmother's hands. The pot she scraped clean. The sandals held together with thread. The years of silent, uncelebrated sacrifice. He did not cry. His voice stayed flat and even the whole time, which somehow made it worse to hear. Then he said, "Whatever I have, she built it. I am not a self-made man. I am a grandmother-made man, and before I start a new family, I want everyone in this compound to know the woman who made this day possible." He turned to Mama Agba. She was already crying. He knelt in front of her, which made the whole compound go quiet. A grown man, 31, successful, kneeling in the dirt in his good clothes. "You fed me when you were hungry," he said. "I saw it. I always saw it. I just didn't have the words then." She held his face in her 2 old hands and could not speak. People in the compound were not quiet for long. Women wept openly. Men cleared their throats and looked away. His fiancée was crying into her wrapper. Even people who did not know the full story, who had just come for food and music, felt something move in their chests without fully understanding why. Because there is something about loyalty that humans recognize in their bones. The real kind. The kind that is not performed for anyone, that exists in scraped pots and cracked sandals and prayers said in the dark when no one is listening. But life was not finished with Lonra yet. 2 years after, the business that had carried him for over a decade collapsed. It did not happen slowly. It happened all at once, the bad investment, a partner who disappeared with the money, and debts that came due faster than he could think. Everything he had built in Lagos went with it. The car. The house. The accounts. Gone. His Lagos wife did not stay to watch him fall. She had married a comfortable man and she had no interest in a struggling one. She packed her things while he was still trying to understand what had happened. She took the children. She left a note on the kitchen table that said she was sorry but she had to think about her future. He read the note 3 times and then folded it and put it in his pocket. He was 58 years old, broke, and completely alone. For weeks he stayed in the empty house, surviving on the kindness of a neighbor who brought food occasionally. Then one morning he woke up and thought about the village. He thought about Kemi. He had not allowed himself to think about her properly in years, but now, stripped of everything he had used to replace her, she came back clearly. He told himself maybe she had forgiven him by now. Maybe things would be different. Maybe the village was where he should have stayed all along. He counted what was left of his money. Enough for transport. Barely. He packed a small bag, the same way he had packed a small bag 30 years earlier when he left. He boarded a bus going north. He told himself this time would be different. He did not know what was waiting for him. When Lorna arrived in the village, the first person he asked about Kemi was an old man sitting outside a compound near the road. The old man looked at him for a moment. Then he looked at the ground. Kemi died a long time ago, he said quietly. Long before the boy was grown. Lorna stood there on the road with his small bag and said nothing. You are the husband? The old man asked. Lorna did not answer. He walked away. He walked to the compound where Mama Agba had raised Adisa. It was a different place now, a proper house, a painted gate, a compound that showed care and money. He stood outside for a while before going in. Adisa was not there that day. He was in the city. But word reached him quickly the way word always travels in small places. Adisa arrived the next morning. Lorna was sitting in the compound when the car pulled in. He stood up when he saw his son. Older. The Agboda was gone. He was wearing plain clothes and worn slippers. Adisa stopped walking when he saw him. He did not greet him. He looked at him for a long time, the way you look at something you are trying to understand. I lost everything, Lorna said finally. His voice was quiet. No more confidence. No more smile. My business. My wife. Everything is gone. Adisa said nothing. I have nowhere else to go, Lorna continued. You are all I have left. The words sat in the air between them. Adisa looked at this man. Really looked at him. He saw the worn slippers. He saw the tiredness in his face. He saw a man who had spent his whole life running toward things that felt important and had arrived at the end of that running with nothing. He felt no satisfaction in it. But he also felt nothing pull him forward. You have nowhere to go, Adisa said slowly, because you spent 30 years building a life that did not include us. That is not my fault. And it is not something I can fix. Lorna's face crumpled. I know I was wrong. I know I failed you. But I am your father. You were present at my birth, Adisa said. That is the full extent of your faithhood. He paused. Kemi died waiting for you. She wrote letters you never answered. She got sick and you were not here. She died and you were not here. Her mother raised your son with cracked sandals and an empty pot and you were in Lagos building a life for another woman's children. His voice did not rise. It stayed flat and even, which was worse. You want me to help you now because life has finally treated you the way you treated everyone else. I am sorry your business failed. I am sorry your wife left. But I cannot be the place you come to when everything else is gone. I refuse to be that now. Lorna opened his mouth. Adisa held up his hand. There is a guest house 2 roads from here. I will pay for 1 week. After that, you need to find your way. That is more than you ever gave us. He turned and walked into the house. Lorna stood in the compound alone. The gate was open behind him. The road stretched away in both directions. He had no direction to go. He picked up his bag. He walked out of the gate. He walked to the guest house. He lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Nobody knows exactly when Lorna made his decision. The guest house owner said he had been quiet the whole week. He ate very little. He did not talk to anyone. He just lay in that room and stared. On the last night of the week Adisa had paid for, Lonra swallowed everything he had left in that small bag that was not clothing. The guest house owner found him the next morning. There was no note this time. When the news reached Adisa, he sat down and did not speak for a while. His wife sat beside him and held his hand. He did not cry. But he did not move for a long time either. Later that evening he said, "I do not know if I could have done anything differently. I only know I could not pretend." His wife said nothing. She just kept holding his hand. He arranged the burial quietly. A small plot. A few people. He paid for everything because that was who he was. But he did not speak at the graveside. He stood there briefly, then left. He had already given his speech to the person who deserved it. Mama Akbar lived 3 more years after the engagement celebration. She died in her sleep on a Wednesday, in the proper room Adisa had built her, on a real mattress, under a good roof. She had eaten well the night before. She had spoken to Adisa on the phone that evening and laughed at something he said. She did not die hungry. She did not die alone. She did not die wondering if her sacrifice had meant anything. At her funeral, Adisa did not give a speech. He sat beside her grave and said nothing. His wife sat beside him, their hands joined, her small belly just beginning to show. A new life, already on its way. He did not need to say anything. The whole village already knew. After the burial, they drove back to the city. Back to the life they had built together. Back to the house with the long dining table where food was never finished and nothing was ever wasted. That night he sat on the veranda for a long time, looking at nothing in particular. His wife brought him tea and sat beside him without asking questions. The kind of quiet that only exists between two people who have nothing to prove to each other. He thought about the pot. The scraping sound of a spoon hitting the bottom of an empty pot so a child could eat. He thought about cracked sandals and black thread. He thought about a woman who prayed in the dark every night for 30 years and never once complained out loud. He thought about a man who had everything and threw it away, and another man who had nothing and built everything. He thought about the difference between the two. Then he finished his tea, went inside, and slept deeply. Some lives are a warning. Some lives are a testimony. The difference is simply this: who you choose to stay for.
The end. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Tell us where you're watching us from, and stay tuned for the next story.